Good afternoon and welcome to the broadcast. This is Lori Ramsey with Socius. I'd like to welcome everyone to our webinar this afternoon, Sage Fixed Assets, Beat Hidden Costs by Easily Tracking Your Fixed Assets. We appreciate you taking your time out of your day to join us. There's a couple housekeeping items that we would like to mention before we begin the presentation. All attendees are in listen-only mode. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please either raise your hand so that we can unmute your line or submit them through the GoToWebinar question box. We'll be answering questions throughout the presentation and we'll follow up afterwards as well. I'd like to introduce today's speaker. From Sage, we have industry expert Grant Griebel, Fixed Asset Solutions Engineer. Grant has been in the software industry for more than 8 years, helping customers to get the most out of technology solutions for their businesses. He works with the Sage Fixed Assets team and has developed an in-depth knowledge on processes, implementation, software use cases, as well as best practices. Grant helps customers uncover their needs, design solutions to fit those needs, and ensures that best practices in the realm of technology and fixed assets management are followed. At this point, Grant, we are ready to transition the presentation over to you.
Well, thank you very much for the introduction, and hello everybody. As mentioned, my name is Griebel, and once again I want to thank all of you for taking the time to join us for this presentation. There's a couple of questions that I hope to answer in our time today. Why is calculating depreciation by hand potentially dangerous? What are the risks associated with it? And finally, what alternatives are available to you? In order to answer these questions, we're going to first spend some time discussing the dangers of using spreadsheets to manage your fixed assets, using some real-world examples and figures. Then we'll walk through Sage's depreciation solution briefly, and finish by discussing the entire fixed asset process, above and beyond just depreciation. So first, why is this topic important? You might be thinking to yourself, well, I'm using spreadsheets to manage my fixed assets today. What should I be worried about? Well, actually, quite a few things. Spreadsheets are a common starting point for most businesses to begin managing their fixed assets. However, as time goes on and your growing business's needs expand, you add additional employees, the federal tax code continues to become more complex, and all of the dangers of using Excel become more and more apparent until it becomes a stressful source of major business challenges. So why is this the case? Well, keeping spreadsheets up to date can start as a simple process, but then quickly grow into a time-consuming burden as they don't scale well with growing businesses. And as your business expands, those spreadsheets end up becoming more complex, using various formulas and cell dependencies so you can work with your data. Unfortunately, this usually leads to one or two individuals within your organization becoming the spreadsheet knowledge holders. And if those people leave the business and take that knowledge with them, it can have major impacts on productivity. Additionally, spreadsheets allow the problem of version control to surface. If there are multiple versions of a spreadsheet being worked on, the consolidation and deduplication of data on each version can end up taking more time than entering the data did in the first place. And finally, spreadsheets offer minimal security and access control options, opening the door to dirty data due to a lack of control. So why does this matter? The biggest reason is bad data. So if you're using Excel to manage your fixed assets today, data integrity is going to be one of the biggest issues that you face. And really, data integrity comes down to bad data. Bad data means bad reports, and bad reports mean bad strategic business decisions. Next, if you don't have accurate asset counts and values, you could be overpaying taxes and property insurance on those assets. Furthermore, if you have bad asset counts, you might not have a business-critical asset on hand when it's needed. And finally, while clean data is your best friend and shield if auditors come knocking, dirty data is your worst enemy. So what do these challenges mean to your business? Let's take a look at some real-world examples of how the dangers of spreadsheets have impacted other businesses, starting with Eastman Kodak. A miscalculation on Kodak spreadsheets forced them to have to restate their financial results due to a $13 million error. There's plenty of other examples out there as well. A similar situation occurred with Red Envelope Inc. An error in a single cell of a spreadsheet led to a 25% drop in share prices due to miscalculating their budgets and cost of goods sold. A spreadsheet led to errors on CECO's construction in progress accounts, resulting in a $1.9 million reduction to net income that had to be spread out over a 4-year period. Long story short, the lack of control and data integrity offered by spreadsheets can be downright dangerous. A study by Tufts School of Business found that out of a selection of audited spreadsheets, 64% had errors, 7 of which exceeded $10 million in value. The Asset Management Resources Group have been assisting their clients' asset accounting efforts since 1989. Their research shows that 65% of fixed asset data is incomplete, inaccurate, or altogether missing, while 10 to 30% of fixed assets on the books are no longer actually owned. And finally, the Spreadsheet Research Group found that out of 90% of all spreadsheets tested suffer from at least one major user error. In addition, none of the tests that they ran included spreadsheets with more than 200 line items, where the probability of error gets close to 100%. In other words, the larger your spreadsheets are, the more hands you have on them, and the more data that they're working with, the larger the chance for error becomes until it's almost inevitable. So how can you eliminate the cost of spreadsheets? Generally speaking, there's 2 approaches. You can outsource the problem to a CPA or get a dedicated solution like Sage Fixed Assets. So let's take a quick break from PowerPoint in order to take a look at how Sage Fixed Assets can help you deal with some of the dangers that we just mentioned. So this is the Sage Fixed Assets solution. And because we've been talking about the dangers of data integrity, I want to show you some ways that a dedicated fixed asset solution can make those dangers a thing of the past. If we go to customize fields within, we can take a field and not only determine what the column heading is going to be, but we can put what we call entry masks in place. Right now, we're using a 2-digit code for location, and as such, we're telling the location field to only accept 2 characters. That way, if you had multiple people working against this, one person in a spreadsheet might type out headquarters, a second person might write headquarters, and a third person might write HQ. According to Excel, those are 3 different data points, and you don't have many options in order to lock down how that data is being entered into the solution. Within Sage Fixed Assets, you absolutely do, entry mask being one of those options. But not only can the entry mask limit the number of characters, it can also put formatting in. Let's say for the sake of discussion that this is a field that's going to keep track of a phone number. I can use the entry mask to not only tell it to accept numerical digits, but do some formatting. So open parenthesis, 3 numerical digits, a close digits. After entering in the entry mask, if I come down here and try to type in letters, but if I type in numbers, not only will it accept them, but automatically format them based on the entry mask that we've created. So again, starting to put controls on top of the way that your users enter data into the system to ensure that your data is clean and ready to report on. Now we can take this a step further by putting what we call a smart list on top of any of these fields. Smart lists are great for any field that you know has a limited number of options. Location would be a great example. You only have a certain number of locations, so there should never be anything in this field other than a location option. Creating a smart list allows us to make that a reality by creating a predefined list of options that will drop down when a user clicks into the field. You can even restrict entry to the list that you've created and have it automatically drop down when a user clicks into it. So you're limiting what those users can choose to put into each field, again, removing the chance of typos and bad data. These lists are also very easy to put together. Let's say that we create a new manufacturing center, Well, because we are using a 2-digit entry mask, I have to come up with a new 2-digit code. We'll call it MF, and I can give it a description of manufacturing 2, add this to my list, and I now have a 4th location that my users can choose from when entering data into the system. So again, data integrity is a big part of ensuring that your reports are tax compliant and accurate. And putting some checks and balances on the way data is entered into the system will absolutely assist you in that. Now, that's really helpful if your users are going to be entering data in manually. But wouldn't it be great if we could remove that manual process altogether? The fixed asset solution also has the ability to import assets from an Excel document. It's a wizard-driven process. This could be used to get started with the solution if you're working with an Excel document today, or this can be used to add new assets on in an ongoing basis in the future without having to do it by hand. And the more that you can automate processes, not only does it save you time, but removing the human element prevents human error from getting into your data set. So the first thing that we'll need to do is choose a source file. I'm going to use a CSV, but we can also use Excel files or even .tab files. Next, we need to choose the company within the fixed asset solution we want to pull these new assets into. Now, are we going to create a field map or use a saved field map? This makes more sense in just a moment. Now, I'm sure that many of you on the line have worked with various pieces of software that have an import from Excel option. Now, most vendors, if they have an import from Excel option, are going to give you an Excel template and say, sure, we can import from Excel. You just take all the time in the world to take your data out of where it is and put it into this template that we've provided you, and then we can import it into the system. Well, at that point, you might as well be entering the data in manually. If you have to massage the data before being able to import it, you're still putting in the time and effort in order to do so and introducing the risk of error. We do things a little bit differently. Instead, we ask you to give us your Excel spreadsheet, and then we build the template on top of it. And then you can reuse that template over and over so that you can turn this into a very quick process. So here's how that is done. At the bottom with the green heading is your source file, the assets you're looking to bring into the system. Above that are all of the available fields within Sage Fixed Assets, even your custom fields. And what we're going to do is match each of these column headings to the destination field within the solution. So column A in our source data is our asset ID. So I choose column A, find our asset ID, and match those together. Column B is our description, so we'll choose column B, find our description, and match those together. And we're just going to do this for every column in our source data. And again, this can take some time doing it initially. However, once you get it done the first time, you can save the field map so that the next time you need to pull data into the system, it becomes a very simple process. You just load the field map right on top of the information. And you can then skip this step entirely in the future, meaning that adding new assets can be as simple as choosing the source file, choosing the company you want to add them to, choosing the field map, and then validating your data. Now, the first time you do it, you'll have some errors, and the system will create a report for you. So you can go back and adjust your field mapping until you get it right. But once you do have those assets validated, I can click on Finish, confirm the import, and I just added about 80 assets while you were all watching. So not only a quick and easy way to take the Excel spreadsheets you're working with today and pull them into the system, but also a quick and easy way to add additional assets in the future so that you don't have to continually do it by hand. Now, one of the other things that might make you concerned about potentially bringing your fixed asset management in-house, especially if you're currently working with the CPA, is compliance. And within the fixed asset solution that we provide, you'll find that we give you a large number of depreciation methods you can work with, including those with bonus depreciation, those without, down through more standard options, straight line declining balance, double declining balance, all the way down to creating your own depreciation calculation or even marking an asset to do not depreciate. You no longer have to enter in depreciation calculations by hand. Additionally, we have a staff here that keeps an eye on the IRS's changing laws and regulations so that we can release a tax-based update on an annual basis. So you'll always know that your depreciation methods, as well as all of the laws that we have baked into the solution from a federal standpoint, are going to be up to date, and your reports are then going to be compliant. And we have a number of tax-based reports that can take care of that for you, including the FASB 109 projection, as well as the Form 4562, already formatted and ready to go. So the system is going to help you ensure that compliance that your CPA or third party might be doing for you today. And we can even take that a step further by running what we call our audit advisor. And you can think of the audit advisor like a virtual auditor in the software. And at any point in time, you can choose the fiscal year end, the book in question, and that virtual auditor can review all of the asset data that's within that company. And it will review it just like an auditor would to let you know if there's anything that would cause a red flag to a real auditor so that you can go in and review the potential issue and make adjustments if you need to. So as I scroll down, you'll see that we do have a potential exception, assets with less than 100% business use case. The system's never going to automatically make a change for you, but it will tell you what the potential issue is, and it will then give you a potential resolution. And it will create a group within the software so you can quickly go back into the solution, find the asset or assets in question, and make those adjustments if you so choose. Another example here, and also tying back to how we keep this up to date for you, we have another review letting us know 19. As many of you probably know, the PATH Act was passed a couple of months ago, extending bonus depreciation from 2014 through to the end of 2019. And the system is letting us know that we have an asset that, based on that new law, actually qualifies for bonus depreciation. And if we want to, we can then go back into the solution, find the asset in question by looking at the audit advisor group that was created for us, go into the asset details, and we could then choose to add bonus depreciation to this asset. So the system's going to go out of its way to automatically ensure compliance, but also give you a large number of tools to make sure that your data is being kept correct and that no auditor is going to look at your financial information with any red flags. So we spent a good amount of time talking about the depreciation process and its challenges. However, the fixed asset management process is just a smaller part of your business's wider financial structure. So how does information flow into and out of your fixed asset process today? And what are the potential benefits of integrating your fixed asset process in your Sage ERP solution? First, let's take a look at the Sage ERP environment. As you can see, many of the Sage ERPs do not have a fixed asset module built in out of the box. Thankfully, Sage's depreciation solution offers out-of-the-box integrations back to the ERP solutions in order to facilitate the creation of new assets from the ERP's ATPO structure, as well as automatically moving the depreciation GL entries from our depreciation solution back into the appropriate general ledger accounts within the ERP solution. So what does all that mean to you? Well, let's first take a look at how the process flows when it's not integrated. Without an integrated solution, there's a large number of manual processes needed to create new assets, as well as getting general ledger information back into the ERP solution. And as we've discussed, anytime a manual process involving data is required, you open the door to dirty data, as well as take up additional time that you could put elsewhere. So what does an integrated solution look like? When your depreciation solution is integrated into your ERP, new asset data and GL entries can flow freely between both solutions. Not only does this free up time that would otherwise be spent manually managing these processes, but the automation ensuring that your data is accurate and error-free. And finally, your fixed asset management process isn't solely focused on depreciation. So what about the rest of the process? You might have the financial side of fixed asset management figured out, but what about the physical side? Who's keeping an eye on your assets once they're in use? Are you conducting physical inventories of your assets today? If not, you ghost assets haunting your books. Ghost assets are any assets that you have on your books, but you cannot physically find. And ghost assets have a very real cost. Let's walk through a potential example using some hard numbers and industry averages. In this case, we're going to assume a tax rate, we're going to assume a number of averages to apply to our costs. We're going to assume a federal tax rate of 30%, a state tax rate of 6%, property tax rate of 3.4%, and an average insurance rate of 1 cent per dollar. Assuming these averages, we can now define the asset information. In this example, we're using the following figures. A total fixed asset cost of $1.5 million, a ghost asset percentage of 15%, and a remaining asset value of 40%. With this information defined, we can then start to do some math. In this example, we can see a total cost of ghost assets equaling $225,000 with a remaining asset value of $90,000. Using that, we can then calculate a potential federal and state tax overpayment based on those ghost assets totaling $32,400. We can also calculate a potential personal property tax overpayment and insurance overpayment totaling an additional $5,310. The total potential overpayment due to bad asset data in this example is $37,710. And that's with a ghost asset percentage of 15%. If you had to go out today and physically identify all of the assets on your books, how many do you think you can find? If you think that you have a 15% ghost asset level, then you can look at some of these numbers and start to draw some conclusions from that. So that's pretty scary stuff, right? Well, thankfully, Sage is here to help. If you're already working within the depreciation module that we just walked through, you already have a head start in solving your inventory challenges. Sage Fixed Assets Depreciation and Sage Fixed Assets Tracking, a module designed to help you perform physical inventories, are designed to work together out of the box. In fact, both programs actually work against the same database. So what does that mean to you? Well, all of your field customizations, smart list and templates flow through into the tracking module. But more importantly, you're not starting from scratch with tracking because you already have a database of asset information in the depreciation module. And when you load that asset data onto a barcode scanner, go out and perform that physical inventory, and then update your asset database, those updates will be visible within both depreciation and tracking. That way, you can make sure asset information that you're running against depreciation is accurate and up to date, and you aren't paying taxes and insurance on assets that no longer exist. The other big benefit of having these two modules be separate but working against the same data set is oftentimes facilities and accounting don't have methods of communication, which is odd because they're focused on the same physical items just from slightly different perspectives. Accounting is always focused on them from a financial standpoint, whereas facilities is keeping an eye on them from a physical standpoint. This solution allows each of those stakeholders to have their own environment that they can use to match their own needs, but because they're working off of the same database, they're actually both helping each other, even though they might not talk to each other or see each other. When they do a physical inventory to update that asset data, it means that the records are now complete, clean, and accurate for the financial side to then run any of their financial reports against, even if they never talk to each other. And finally, keeping a close eye on your assets doesn't have to start after they're already placed into service. Sage also offers a planning tool, which is designed to help you manage your works in progress. You can set up budgets, both at a project and line item level, and then compare them to the actual expenses and transactions that you're accumulating as you build these assets out. Planning will help you do this and more, and when it comes time to finalize a new asset or assets, the system can actually drop them directly into the depreciation solution that we looked at, create a historical record, and ensure that the assets are now placed in service and depreciating within the depreciation solution, which shares a database with tracking, so you can make sure they're also being physically tracked as well. I hope I was able to shed at least some light on the potential risks that you can avoid in your fixed asset management process. My contact information is here, so if you do have any questions, please do not hesitate to send me an email, and I'll do my best to respond to you as quickly as possible. Additionally, you can keep up with Sage as a whole on social media using Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter. Now, before I pass it back to Socius, I did want to thank everyone today.
Thanks, Grant. Just a couple of additional items we wanted to mention before we start the Q&A. All upcoming events and current promotions can be found on our website at socius1.com. Through June 30th, 2016, Sage ERP clients who are current on a maintenance plan will receive 20% off of the purchase of Sage fixed assets. Also, Sage has announced their first quarter promotions that expire in June. Please take a look at the link provided on your screen for the entire list of promotions. Sage Summit 2016 is closer than ever this year. It will be held in Chicago from July 25th to the 28th. Register by April 30th, 2016 and use code SOCIUS for a discounted rate of only $99. For those that have never attended, it's the best place to learn more about the software you own and get great ideas on improvements that you can make to help your business grow. To discuss Sage Summit or how Sage Fixed Assets can help your business, please contact either Diane Graziano or myself, Lori Ramsey, if you have any questions. Our contact information is currently shown on your screen, and we will open up the floor for any questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand on the GoToWebinar screen, and I will unmute your line.
And while I know we focused in on depreciation today, feel free to ask questions about any aspect of that process, the physical, the planning, or the tax-based compliance.
It doesn't look like we have any questions today. Diane and I will follow up with everyone to get their feedback on the presentation and find out how we can help you and your business by adding Sage Fixed Assets. Again, I thank you for your time, and we will let you get back to your day. Have a great day.